And this is Meet the Candidate. Today we have Don Mowry, incumbent for District 9.
Correct.
Okay. We are going to have a small discussion about what he's done and his since he is running for re-election. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Great. Don, the first thing I'd like to ask is, could you give us a little bit of background about, number one, why you wanted to run for board to begin with, and a little bit a history of what you had done before.
Okay. I'll start with when I came here. I came here in 1988 to accept a position as a faculty member in the social work department at University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. And I've been here ever since. I did spend about 12 years on a release to be the director of the Center for Service Learning. So I think I really began to get more engaged with my community because that was my job, was to hook students with with community projects so that they could meet their service learning graduation requirement.
Wow.
I've also been involved with Clear Vision Eau Claire since 2008, which is an organization that has a goal of preserving quality of life and improving the local economy, empowering people, teaching them civic engagement skills. And we've had a variety of successes. I think that probably the more prominent one is the idea of having a shared performing arts center, which became the Confluence Center, or the Pablo Center at the Confluence.
Okay.
Yeah. I've spent 3 terms on the board of directors for the Eau Claire Area Hmong Mutual Assistance Association, so I've been both professionally and personally involved with refugee resettlement issues. My family sponsored and mentored a family who came here from Laos, from Thailand, from the refugee camps back in 1989. And we met them on the plane as they got off the at the Eau Claire airport, and we've been friends ever since. And I helped the leader of that family, John Lohr, with his run for city council last year, and he was successful in his run. I also am currently involved in a couple different organizations. One is Initiative for New Directions in Education, and this is a group of very energetic young people who have some ideas about how we can better educate our youth. And they floated the idea of having a Little Red Nature Academy. Little Red, that didn't work. But the Mondovi School District was very interested, and they had an empty school, Anthony Acres. And last year we wrote a grant, and it was accepted to have a public charter school at Anthony Acres, and we're busy working on that. In fact, I'm going to an open house tonight for parents who are interested, and it'll be problem or project-based learning and place-based education. So instead of learning by subject area, students will complete projects, and all the curriculum requirements will be folded into that project. So they'll learn math, they'll learn English, they'll learn science, but it'll be in the context of something they're very interested in and they work hard on.
Well, that's different. I haven't heard that.
And the other one is Roundtable Revival, which is an emerging nonprofit that really is trying to develop, bringing everyone to the table to develop community-based reentry and recovery services. So I've always been interested in our criminal justice system, and I think we can do a lot of things differently. While I was still a faculty member and in the service learning role, I worked with a group of people that started AIM Court. It used to be Assess, Inform, Measure, but we all volunteered. We weren't getting any additional salary for it. We met early Friday morning and put together a program that is still today current. It's now Alternatives for Incarcerated Mothers, but it gives mothers the opportunity to avoid some jail time and to have a supportive court once a week and be surrounded by caseworkers, probation agents, and whatever working for them. And they can stay in their own homes and keep their children. So the children are, rather than being placed in foster care, can stay at home. And I also worked with a group of AmeriCorps Vistas, again, when I was service learning director, to provide some of the kind of beginning plans for what became the transition center.
Oh, okay.
Transition center. It's a day treatment center, so it provides another alternative to help people stay in the community and not be just housed in jail.
Okay. So,
Oh, and then, let me just,
Yeah.
and then at the county level, these last 2 years, again, as we were
Yeah.
talking, it felt like I'm finally getting past my probationary period. I know enough now that I think I'm in a good position to make a significant contribution. I was assigned to Beaver Creek Board Reserve, the Human Services Board, and UW-Madison's Extension Committee.
oh, okay.
But then I also volunteered for a jail population study, trying to determine when or if we'll need to outfit that fourth pod of the jail, which is currently empty, but that would be real expensive. So the other thing we were doing is trying to figure out what else could we do to avoid that. And I'm chair of the county broadband committee, which
Okay.
really brings together into a collaboration all the different actors and involved in, or might be involved in expanding broadband.
Yeah, that's good.
So, and we are planning to write grants, and there are some significant areas of the county that are either unserved or underserved
Okay,
in terms of high-speed internet access.
that's great. Being that you are the incumbent, and if you were reelected, what three main issues do you see that you really need to be put in front and do some things with?
Sure. And I do have three that really, and they're not in any,
Yeah.
as I talk about them, they're not in any priority order.
Okay.
But I think number one, people who live in rural areas, and I do represent the whole county, but I also know that there are people living everywhere that really would like to preserve our natural environment.
Okay.
We have some wonderful rivers and streams and lakes and parks and trails, and Beaver Creek, I think, is a real gem. Coon Fork, campground goes to the top of the volume one every year. So protecting that, and there are threats. Private wells can be polluted from misapplication of fertilizers or being close or in the vicinity. It depends on the soil structure and the type of geological structure that you have, but nitrates are a risk. I know my private well has gone down over time because there's less farming in my immediate area.
Okay.
Anthony Acres, on the other hand, we're wanting to reopen that school, and right now the well is testing at 9 to 12 parts per million, I think it is. The cutoff for health hazards for children and pregnant women is 10.
Oh.
So I think we're going to have to drill a new well and try to get deeper in that. And those threats come from, the farming practices that are not, according to recommendation. CAFOs, the confined animal feeding operations, are a threat. Even a development with lots of private septic systems can contribute to the pollution of groundwater. So I think I really would like to try and maintain the high quality of our natural resources. And I think part of that is trying to take more advantage of locally grown produce and food, and trying to move off the fossil fuel bandwagon, so to speak, have more renewable energy.
Yep.
Second, I think it's important to be fiscally responsible. I talked already about alternatives to incarceration, and I mentioned the AIM Court and the Community Transition Center. There's a lot more we can do. This county is part of the Stepping Up initiative, which is a national initiative to try and move people who have mental illness and severe mental illness out of the jail into treatment in the community. And we're actually going to be taking part in a peer learning network that's focused on that in the next few months. And Tiana Glenna, the criminal justice CJCC coordinator, applied for that, and we got accepted, so we're looking forward to that. So it's using evidence-based approaches that work, that also benefit people, and people
Okay.
do much better if they're getting treatment for their mental illness than if they're not.
Yeah,
And
that's,
if they have supports in the community and they have adequate housing and
Mhm.
healthcare and so on. And Roundtable Revival is also part of that, but privately I'm working on
Mhm.
that to try and, I think we're gonna have a first stop program so people getting out of jail can
Mhm.
go, if they have no other resources, they can go and be coached by a certified peer specialist who is someone who has been in jail and, or prison
Mhm.
and has gone through training by the state and passed an exam and now can help others.
okay.
As a peer specialist. And part of the fiscal responsibility too, because if we expand to that fourth part of the jail, I think its estimates are anywhere from 3 to 5 million to outfit it
Outfit
according
it,
to today's
okay.
standards, and then another 2+ million every year to staff it. And in this era of levy limits, we don't have that much extra money. So
Right.
it would really be a financial hit for the county. Also, we're trying to, the big embezzlement scandal happened before I took office,
Okay.
but not too far before. There's even been a couple smaller ones since then, but I think we have enough safeguards in place to avoid, someone walking off with $1 million or $2 million. The other thing I think we really need to do is, and nobody seems to have a good answer for this, but
Mhm.
I've been taking part in the Citizen Police Academy, so I've been,
Okay.
every Monday night, I've been spending 2 hours at the jail and at the county buildings, learning about what a typical day is for a deputy out on patrol, what a typical day is for someone who works in the jail, someone who works in the drug task force unit, and the detective units, and all of them say, if we didn't have meth, if we didn't have the meth epidemic, our lives would be a lot easier. We'd have
Okay.
fewer people in jail. On the human services side, because of meth, more children are being placed. Sometimes the homes aren't safe if they've been cooking at home, cooking the drug at home. And the treatment takes much longer. It's a highly addictive drug. It's very hard to go into recovery from being addicted to meth. So it's just contributing to a lot of excess costs for foster care, for alternate care, and excess costs in terms of the jail expenses too. And it's putting our safety and people at risk too, that people can, who are on meth can become very angry.
Yes, that's true.
And physically violent. Not everybody, but it does
But-
happen, yeah. So that's, if we could solve that, and I don't have a good answer for that, but I'm trying to learn.
Yeah, I think that's,
Yeah.
I think the targets that you have approached are very admirable, and one of the things that always comes up in your position is that you, as a county supervisor, are always put in a position of, if you have to cut, where do you cut? At the same time, my side of the thing to find out from you is, how do you educate your constituents about just what you told me? A lot of things there that you told me I didn't know. So how would you propose that you could at least do that? Because I think that makes a difference.
Right. Well, I complain about the fact that the election is only for 2 years. I mean, I'd make it be for 4 years if I had my way. But it does force one to communicate with the constituents on a regular basis. When I first ran, I did most of my own canvassing, and I would go door to door and just talk to people, ask them what their their issues are and what they were excited about or interested in. And that's when I learned that I didn't know that people didn't have access to high-speed internet. And there's a part of the county, and I won't name the private phone company, they don't even have access to adequate phone services. Sometimes the 911 system doesn't work. Now that's dangerous.
Very much so.
Yeah. So I think talking to constituents and seeing what issues they have, and then trying to fit that into what I think is important and what the county thinks is important is a way. I also I do have a Facebook page.
Okay.
And people can call me. I do mailings when I'm, actively running for office. I'll be doing at least a couple mailings. And people do call me, or they talk to me when they run into me. So I'm always willing to listen, to find out what the issues are, and I think those are the kinds of issues that have the best chance of being successful in terms of if people are interested and they might be involved. The broadband effort came about because we invited the county administrator to come to a meeting at Brunswick Town Hall, and I assembled some of my constituents, and they said, this is not right. This is not, it's not even moral not to have the children not have access to be able to do their homework. And so many things depend on it these days. Telehealth and telecommuting and agricultural methods and so on. So, like pulling together people that have issues, I think, and that's what the broadband committee is. It's a collaboration among private telecommunications companies and IT directors and the Eau Claire Energy Co-op CEO is there. So it's a lot of people who are interested in moving the
things forward.
Yeah.
What do you propose in trying to? I know there's a lot of mandates because, which was a different take for me that counties are mandated to do services and stuff, and how do we help educate people that these aren't things that we can ignore? So in those mandates, how do you see us trying to maneuver in order to just stay on top of the game for everybody with what they are? And how many mandates do we have? That's the whole thing,
Well, if I served on all the committees, and like 10 years from now, I could probably tell you, but human services, basically, I think just about every service they provide is a mandated service. And they're not all funded 100% from the state. And the area that we're struggling with, the alternate care, children and family, that's the least level of funding in terms of the mandate. So it's a real struggle to do that. And if you're trying to address all the needs that families have if they've been meth involved, you can't cut back on social workers.
Right.
You actually have to increase services to try and keep those families together and to make sure treatment is long enough and so that it has a chance to work. And there's going to be recidivism too.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess we have to we have to keep track of the roads, and there's a lot of mandated services.
Yeah.
And I would recommend that every citizen go through this Citizen Police Academy experience, because you really you understand more what it's like to work in the jail or to be on patrol.
Right.
The sheriff's office, they don't serve Eau Claire, but they serve the rest of the county outside of the city. And there's like only 3 patrol on at once and in the evenings. And so they have huge areas that they have to respond to. They do call for assistance if they, if somebody is in need of extra backup. But and the jailers have stressful jobs too.
So a real opportunity is for nonprofits like us, maybe to help understand or look at those programs so that we can get that information out to people.
Sure.
I think at the same time, there's always a cost to everything. So you got to find, I think, what's your approach sometimes to when you say, this is, how do you get something through to the rest of the supervisors of how important it is? And I don't know, to be honest, I don't know how many are in your position with such a huge rural area, but I think sometimes how do you get that across to all the rest of them, how important this is?
Well, I think it's important to lay out the facts and to let people, come to their own conclusions. We were faced with more recently, and it might become an issue in terms of people complaining about, and they might say, well, you voted for the vehicle registration fee increase. And yes, I did. I didn't want to, but there was no other way for us to get our roads up to the level and the condition where it won't require even more money to repair them if they fall apart. So there's even a pacer index where on a 0 to 10, if you keep your roads about a 6 level, they're not perfect, but they're a lot less expensive to maintain than if you let it drop to a 4.
Okay.
So it is an investment, and legally, we couldn't share the money with the city or the towns. That was just something we couldn't do.
Right.
And all that money is going to transportation. And you can go to the county website and you can see the projects. There's
Okay.
a tab to show you where the projects are. If people ask me, I mean, we do a lot of background work before we vote on something like
Right.
that. And I have a whole packet of information that advised that referendum that was put
Okay.
together by county staff. And it's, you know, it just became a matter of, well, we have to maintain our roads.
Yeah,
And we're getting less money in terms of shared revenue from the state to do so this is something we have to do.
okay.
Dunn County passed a referendum and they're using it for their alternate care, the overage in foster
Right.
care and replacement of children.
To me, I guess it really comes down to what happened had to, because there were not other alternatives. You know, and I guess when I look at those kinds of situations, is there some kind of way for anybody else within the county or anyone else to help you as a supervisor to get that information out? And like you said, you
Right.
guys did a lot of research,
Right.
so you know how many.
And I think there's the Wisconsin County Association, anybody
Okay.
can go online and look at their resources and the media that they produce. They do there's actually a kind of a newsletter that comes, or newspaper that comes from the National Association of Counties, but the state has a magazine they
Okay.
put together, and it's very informative.
Okay.
So I think we try to come together in those kinds of associations so that we can show the legislature it's not just Oak Creek County that's not spending its money well. It's a crisis across several counties in terms of the alternate care budget.
Okay. And to be very honest, some of the things that you've mentioned are firsts for me to have heard of as well.
Yeah.
Is there one of the things is there non-mandated, but do you support discretionary programs if you believe they could reduce pressure on mandatory programs?
Can you be specific?
Yeah, for example, you know,
Yeah.
community transition center or a treatment courts reducing jail bed days.
It's
You know,
saving us money. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
and that's-
a no-brainer.
Yeah, see, but I don't,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
that's my whole thing is that if our constituents were given that thing, do they have all that information as well?
Yeah.
And
I think we have to. My third point, which I didn't get to, but I kind of touched on, is we have to do some investment. We have to invest in our roads and our infrastructure. I think we have to invest in people too. And broadband is just something that I think is almost immoral that people don't have access to high-speed broadband. And it'll save us money in the long run. It'll save commuting costs. It'll save people. It's been shown that once a county gets broadband, they tend to increase their educational levels. They get better jobs. They get paid higher wages. Everything. It lifts all boats basically. So I think we have to invest, and I would love to be able to pay everyone a living wage in Eau Claire. And the county did pass a referendum to that effect, but the state decided to take that power away from. And we had figured out how to do it, and the purchase of service contracts we had with private nonprofits, they had figured out a way to do it, and it was working. But then it changed. So those contracts will, once they expire, they won't be in place anymore. Youth development, 4-H programs, I'm on the extension committee, that's critical for rural youth. Because parents don't have the time or opportunity to take them all around the city to all the different programs.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one thing that they have that they can, even if they're low-income family, they can participate in.
That's good.
So I think there has to be some investment
Okay.
in both infrastructure and in people for us to move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm going to give you an opportunity to sell this whole thing.
Okay.
In the fact that, you know, in looking at the reelection, and if you're reelected, then of these things, is there any one or two that you feel can do a bigger impact and that you would be pushing to do everything possible to make it happen because of the impact it would make?
I think the two areas that I would be, there's three.
Okay.
You know, I have to
That's
say
fine,
there's
that's fine.
One is, you've heard me say broadband.
Yep.
And the committee is very committed to expanding broadband to the whole county. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
But there's more interest on the level of the state. Jeff Smith just proposed a bill that would increase what we're currently spending, $24 million on broadband this year. They had over $50 million in requests. He wants to expand it to $100 million. Indiana, they spend $100 million a year, and their whole counties, the whole state's going to be broadband accessible soon. So that's one area. A second area would be those alternatives to incarceration, and working to help identify people who are coming into jail at booking to see if they have, with a brief jail mental health screen, see if they have, you know, they need further screening by a professional, and then tracking those people and making sure that they have a soft handoff to treatment programs in the community when they leave the jail. Maybe even hook them up before they leave. Because otherwise, we'll see them again. They come back to jail if they're not getting treatment. That would be a second area. And the third area is, again, I'm working, I don't know how we're going to address it, but there's got to be something we can do to prevent people from taking that first hit of methamphetamine, because it hooks them, and it hooks them hard, and it causes all kinds of problems for them, their families, the community, the jailers, the foster care system. It's terrible.
Yeah. It's like one big wave.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time out today, because I really think it's so important that the people get to meet the candidates, but also to be able to see, for incumbents, it's about what you've been able to accomplish, but at the same time, you get to give them a picture of what you would do for them.
Right.
So if you have a last statement, it's good to look at that camera and tell the people what you...
I would just, you know, my last statement would be to please consider giving me your vote on April 7th. I promise to continue to listen to you and to work for you. And I hope that you'll also support Valley Media Works because of this great service that they're doing. I actually put instructions on my first piece of literature, my mailer, on how to access my old Valley Media Works program, because it is a wonderful way to get the candidates out and to be able to meet, you know, through a video, the people that have to make up their mind about voting.
Well, I want to thank you, Don, and I want to again encourage all people. It's April 7th. It's make sure that you get out and vote, and I'm sure that there's going to be being able to vote early. Make sure if you can't make it on the 7th, if you can get in earlier. But whatever you do, please vote.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.